Welcome to the show. It's IB Nation Sports Talk and the Friday Rapid Fire, along with Vince D'Addario, Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers, and apparently Brian's show just ended. I don't know what time they started today, but thanks for the heads up, Lance.
I mean, usually at 1, unless they, change things up a little bit, I suppose.
Must have had a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, must have.
I don't know. We were just talking before we fired up. We hit the start button, whatever you want to call it. I was, back in the radio days, you would say on the, before we went on the air. Obviously, it's not on the air, but
on the stream.
Interesting that Mike Bray had another decommitment. 2 of the 3 in the class have decommitted. But even more interesting is that former Notre Dame standout Demetrius Jackson has been hanging around. I've seen him the last couple of weeks, and this week he was the scout team player of the week, apparently, for Notre Dame women's basketball. He was doing an impersonation of Florida State's best player, the leading scorer in the ACC, Tanaya Latson, and so he gave the women some practice, and they shut her down last night. So
hey, there you go.
The award.
I mean, they've always had like male teams come in, like, male
group of guys, like students basically.
Yeah. Yep. So they want to keep their hoop dreams alive, and they come in and they play against the starters and whatever. And it's very beneficial. And I can see how that would be beneficial. And you bring in a former NBA player.
Yeah.
I can see how that could be beneficial too.
Very beneficial. Like, because how else are you going to, impersonate that high-end, skill and agility? Well, you bring in an NBA player.
Yeah.
So.
I remember when I was in college, our women's basketball team, like Vince was talking about, there was a group of students that they put together, pretty athletic, and they would run them as like a practice squad throughout the entire season. And their reward for that is they took them on like their opening season trip, wherever they decided to go.
Okay.
And that was usually somewhere nice. Like, the women's basketball team, Notre Dame women's basketball team went to the Bahamas. Was that right?
Right.
Yep. And so, they went. I think they went to like Hawaii one year, and another like Arizona another year.
Man.
And that team, that group of that practice squad guys got to travel with. That was a reward for their season-long efforts.
That's interesting, because I don't think, like, at the Division I level, I don't think they're allowed to do that. I don't think they're allowed to bring practice squad players along. But hey, you can. That's a pretty cool reward.
Yeah, it is.
As a guy,
sign me up.
Player.
Let's go.
I'll go to Hawaii or the Bahamas or whatever. Get pounded around a little bit on the hardwoods. But,
man, no kidding.
Yeah, very cool. All right, well, hit the like button if you would as we get set to get started. We've got a slew of different topics tonight, and I've been waiting all day to see where you guys stand on these first 2 Notre Dame related topics. I'm waiting with bated breath to see exactly. I kind of have an idea on the first one, but so here is the first one. I won't waste any time. So Daniel Jeremiah, he's from the NFL Network, and maybe you saw this tweet the other day. Here is Daniel Jeremiah's tweet. He says he's a draft analyst. Obviously, he says my tight end order as of January 26th, which I guess was yesterday. So he tweeted this yesterday. We didn't have a show yesterday, so that's why we're talking about it today. Number 1 on his list, Dalton Kincaid of Utah. Number 2 on his list, Darnell Washington of Georgia. Number 3 on Daniel Jeremiah's list, Michael Mayer, of course, of Notre Dame. Number 4, Luke Musgrave from Oregon State. Number 5, Sam Laporta from Iowa. Jeremiah says, as of today, 6 tight ends in my top 50. Excellent class. So, guys, what do you think of this ranking of Daniel Jeremiah's top 5 tight ends?
It's embarrassing. I'm sorry. I don't know what tape he's watching. I don't know what film, he has put in what games he's watching. How I just don't understand what he sees. I mean, Washington wasn't even the best tight end on his team, and yet he's the second best tight end in the country, or in the
draft class.
rankings. Come on, give me a break. Look, Washington is a big dude. So if we're doing like a Mr. Olympia,
he's
contest,
very big, actually. Yeah, like 6'7", 270. He looks right. Yeah,
he's huge, but he's not as good as Michael Mayer. Not even close. And the Kincaid kid, I'm sorry, I watched a lot of games of Utah for whatever reason this year, and I was wondering to myself what the fuss was about with him compared to Michael Mayer and the Bowers kid from Georgia. I don't. You got those two, and then you've got everybody else. And I just never saw what that was all about. This is 100% clickbait, in my opinion, because it got all the Notre Dame people riled up. Yeah, I got all the Notre Dame people riled up. Well, it even got Ryan riled up. He was all ticked off on.
Here's the problem with the clickbait argument, though. It's not like he linked a story to this. He just linked his rankings. You know?
Yeah, but you can still want that attention to your Twitter.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I mean, it still stirs people. I mean, all you've got to do on Twitter to stir people up is put up any list, basically, because as strongly as you might feel and as much as you might feel like, well, everyone's going to agree with this, it doesn't matter what it is. You know, it's like Jenga is the number one table game, followed by dominoes and, checkers, whatever. You're going to have 8 million people coming at you and telling you how stupid you are for putting up your list. You know?
It was a terrible list. I'm sorry. It's like he just put all the names in a bag, shook it up, and then just pulled names out. Like, that's what it looked like to me. That's his evaluation process.
Yeah, and it's when I read this, I was like, okay, well, I want to eliminate my biases, so I'm curious to what other people would say. And in my personal opinion, if we were ranking the three, I actually would have Mayer 1, Kincaid 2, and Washington 3. Really, all Washington is a projection for what his skill set could potentially be, because he hasn't shown that he can be that consistent pass catcher. He hasn't shown that he can be that consistent run blocker, that he can be a menace down in the red zone, unlike someone like Michael Mayer. And I think that's where I had a hard time, is because, there's a guy like Washington who has some, intangibles like the height, the size, the speed, and that kind of stuff. But, he hasn't really shown it on the field yet as a tight end. And Michael Mayer, everyone knew he was a prominent or the number one target in the Notre Dame offense this season, and he still was the leading, catch guy for Notre Dame. So I ultimately thought it was clickbait. I was reading through Mel Kiper's top tight ends. He has Kincaid at 4, Washington at 6, and Mayer at 1. So it's like, I'm going to probably trust someone like Mel Kiper, whose job is year round to kind of study and break down positions, compared to one guy who's kind of firing off, what seems to be some clickbait, because he immediately it got everyone fired up on Twitter. So it had to be the root of the evil there.
I mean, depth charts are relative, because obviously, theoretically, look at Matt Castle, for example, at USC. He came out, not that he had a great pro career, but he ended up having a pro career and started in the NFL after never starting at USC, but at the same time, it's like, no one has ever heard of Washington, literally. Like, all anyone talks about is Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, got the award and, everything else. And then all of a sudden, okay, Daniel Jeremiah, here comes Darnell Washington. Because again, like Vince said, I mean, the guy is a freaking physical.
He's an Adonis. Don't get me wrong. He's a muscular and like he's the whole, like, if you're posing and you're doing all this. Yeah, okay, he wins that award, but that's it.
But like, I went and saw some other draft evaluations of this guy. Doesn't have a second gear, won't threaten the top of the defense, because he doesn't have top end speed and is good, not great. He doesn't warrant safety help, those kind of things. It's like, how can you, how are you going to put, because like the worst things they're saying about Michael Mayer is like, well, his blocking technique could be a little bit better. He could have a little bit more diversity with his pass routes and those kind of things. It's like everyone recognizes the skill that's there. And I just don't know how, like, all anyone wants to talk about all season is Bowers down there at Georgia. And now, because he's not draft eligible, all of a sudden the guy who was second behind him by a mile, by the way, at actually playing the position, all of a sudden that guy's ahead of Michael Mayer. And oh, by the way, Michael Mayer is the all-time leading tight end in every category for tight ends at Notre Dame, a school, by the way, that has cranked out tight end after tight end for basically the last 20 years.
Bingo.
Bingo.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately what it comes down to is what everyone is fascinated with what Darnell Washington could potentially be, not what he is, right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, you could never bank on what's going to be.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's potential, there's upside. Like, I look at him at Washington, and again, like, you read his draft evaluations, you see a little bit of him, you see his size, and it's like, to me, he just screams like inline tight end. He's more like Troy Nicholas than, a receiving tight end type guy. So, well, Daniel Jeremiah, I guess he did his thing because we aggregated him, and everyone's, coming at him, and he got what he was looking for. He got what he was looking for. He got his attention. So now he can keep putting out faulty draft rankings and getting yelled at for the next, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is at this point. All right, here's something interesting that I saw. This one comes from Stuart Mandel's mailbag on The Athletic. Like the Athletic writers, they'll do a mailbag, kind of thing, post a question, answer the question. Someone asked Stuart Mandel this on The Athletic, and it has to do with Notre Dame. So the reader says, let's look at Notre Dame. It seems the Irish are in a lose-lose situation. If they join a conference, they will become just another team in the new conference and lose their national brand. On the other hand, if they remain independent, they will have no shot at half of the playoff berths since they're not a conference champion and may risk losing a conference chair when the music realignment stops, i.e., conferences expand and won't have room for Notre Dame in the future. What should Notre Dame do? And that is from Rob in South Carolina. So, guys, do you buy or sell any of this hypothetical dilemma that Rob is pointing to here for Notre Dame?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Rob from South Carolina. But I sell this, and I sell this because at the end of the day, I think Notre Dame has weighed all of their possible outcomes and determined what is going to be the best for them going forward. And I don't think that a dilemma exists because I do agree if they join a conference, they will probably lose some of that national branding that they have and kind of become, another team within a pool of another teams.
A la Penn State. Yeah.
Right. And so if that would be the dilemma. To me, you'd be in a dilemma if you did that. But remaining independent, there is no dilemma because, you're not going to maybe get a first round bye, but you have the potential to host a game still. There's, potentially the playoff is going to be expanding. So if Notre Dame can't be in that, 12 team field, then that's their own personal dilemma. I don't think that there's a dilemma by remaining independent really until, and when the playoffs expand, then really I don't see a dilemma at all. I only think a dilemma exists if they were to join a conference because they would just be a big pond or a big fish, in a bigger pond, essentially. Right now, they're the biggest fish swimming in their own pond, so they can do whatever they want.
I agree completely. This is a huge sell for me because right now, as it stands, Notre Dame can only be one of 6 teams because you got the 5 conference champions, you've got the one, group of 5, right? And there's 12, so there's 6 other spots. Notre Dame has to get one of those spots. If they go to super conferences, they actually have an opportunity to get more spots because that's less conference champions. So I don't see it as a negative in any way, shape, or form. And they knew what they were getting themselves into when they agreed. I mean, Jack Swarbrick helped build this plan. You don't think he understood what he was getting himself into?
Exactly what he was getting into.
He was an author of this plan, right? He knew there's no way that Notre Dame will ever be higher than 5th. I don't see a problem with that personally because, number one, you get to host, like Jesse said. Number 2, you're playing the same amount of games as the conference champion because you don't play in a conference championship, and now you got to play
making it up.
You're making
by
it
never
up.
Getting a bye. Yeah,
big deal, and it's a home game, which you can't even say that about the conference
potentially.
Championship games.
You're not guaranteed a home.
You're
game.
right. You're right. You're right.
Right.
And if Notre Dame has a chance at winning a championship, it's going to be a home game. I'll just say that. So yeah, I don't see it as a detriment in any way, shape, or form. Frankly, it's a huge sell for me.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, it's just like why Notre Dame would never put themselves in a situation that is going to cause them to have conflict down the road, right? Like they're going to make the best decisions on their own interest.
And again, we've talked about it again and again. The expansion of the college football playoff was essentially, like if you wanted to say Jack Swarbrick and his two-step plan, step one was get the college football playoff to expand. Boom, it's going to expand. There's going to be 12 teams. The top 4 teams are going to get a bye. The top, the conference champions all get automatic bids. The Power 5 and then the best group of 5 get the automatic bids. But do the math. There are only 4 spots right now, and that still leaves 6 spots after those other teams get in. So there's still going to be more available spots for Notre Dame, even though, as this guy is saying, 6 spots are going to be, taken care of. The only thing I agree with him on is the thing about joining a conference. I do completely agree that they become just another school if they join a conference. That's why part of why they want to avoid that at all costs. And, as Father David Penny says, there's always going to be room for Notre Dame. When we played the Andrew Marchand comments earlier this week, and that's something that we talked about. The Big Ten has a Notre Dame clause. Like there is a specific number in the Big Ten's TV contract that if they were to add Notre Dame, here's what Notre Dame would get. Here's, essentially what all the shares go to for Notre Dame and all the Big Ten schools. It would obviously change things if you add Notre Dame to the mix. There's always going to be room for Notre Dame. Like there's never going to be, a musical chairs of conference realignment that Notre Dame gets left out of. If they want a spot, the ACC is practically begging them to come in right now. And I still completely believe that, like, when you look at how the men's and women's basketball teams are being treated with different scheduling issues and things like that, things that are promised that didn't come through with the ACC, when you look at the stupidity of the buys that Notre Dame ended up with in football for next season and where they are, that's because of the ACC and the way the ACC is scheduling it. I think that the ACC is trying to, put the screws to them right now and make them uncomfortable and be like, things would be a lot better if you were over here with us. But bottom line, there's always going to be a spot for Notre Dame, and they're not going to get left out of the playoff. This is everything is good for Notre Dame right now.
Expanding the playoff is only going to benefit Notre Dame, period. It's only going to benefit them.
And step two of the process, by the way, and I'll let you finish here in a second, Jess. Step 2, I said step 1 was the expansion of the playoffs. Step 2 is what we talked about on Monday, Vince and I, the TV contract. 3 more years on this current NBC deal. And then if they get, if they are able to negotiate the TV contract they're looking for, that's what keeps them independent.
100%.
Yeah, so there's all I was going to say is there is a reason why teams were jockeying over Notre Dame in this previous bowl cycle, and they were 8-4. Like there were serious jockeying going over for, who gets the Notre Dame game. So if you're telling me that there's going to, Notre Dame's going to have to sweat it out when it comes to the playoffs, I just don't believe it.
No way. Not a chance.
Yeah. I mean, they would be like when you look with a 12-team format, and I agree with Crystal. Yeah. No reason to the ACC. No. And the reason the ACC, would want Notre Dame so badly right now is because their TV contract that runs through 2036 sucks. And I think if they could add Notre Dame at any point before then that helps them renegotiate that deal potentially and get much bigger revenue from whoever it happens to be, ESPN or whoever, out of that deal.
I mean, the biggest thing for me is access to the playoff. And until they say that you can't be in the playoff unless you're a conference champion, Notre Dame's not joining a conference. Right. The money part will always work itself out with Notre Dame. They're always going to be a commodity. They're always going to be able to get money. They were the only school. They were the first school to have a TV contract. Notre Dame started all of that.
Still are the only
now look at where it's at. You know what I mean? Like they were the first ones to have that. So that part will take care of itself. I'm not worried about that at all. It's always, to me, been about access to the playoff. And if somewhere down the line they make it so that you have to be a conference champion to be in the college football playoff, Flex your muscle. Make your own conference.
Yeah.
Start plucking the schools you want. Make
the only way that would
nationwide
happen.
conference.
Yeah, I mean, everybody still wants them in there because they know that giving Notre Dame a better shot, the expansion of the playoff is still about just a different TV contract. That's what it's all about. And it's all about different revenue sources. And like for that to happen, for Notre Dame to be left out of an expanded playoff because they don't have a conference championship, what are they going to let the MAC champion in or the Mountain West Conference champion in over Notre Dame? Like anyone cares about watching those
Not
teams?
a chance.
People care about watching Notre Dame, and that's why people are still willing to make these kind of deals with Notre Dame to include them because they know the value of having Notre Dame around.
No doubt.
So fill in the blank. Notre Dame adding Princeton defensive end transfer Cole Aubrey as a walk-on is blank.
Awesome if you can get away with it. I mean, he looks like a big-bodied kid. It's going to add depth, obviously. If depending on who you talk to, defensive line is not a liability, but it's a place where they need to get better and they need depth. Okay, if he's willing to come on as a walk-on, yes, please. I mean, you don't have to waste a scholarship. I shouldn't say waste. You don't have to use a scholarship on him. He's not used to having scholarships anyway because he went to the Ivy League.
Went to the Ivy League, yeah.
Obviously, he's got money. Come on in, baby. Like that. This is a no-lose situation for Notre Dame. None. Zero. And if they have an extra scholarship, when it's all said and done, they'll throw it his way, I'm sure. This is a win-win.
Yeah, so I see it as a win only because it is a walk-on status, and the ceiling will honestly be, how far that he takes them. But, you look at kind of he's 6'1", 230 pounds. Princeton had him listed as a linebacker, so that kind of shows you that he's, potentially a little bit undersized, might have to get beefed up a little bit. And then you look at his, career totals. He's got like 15 total tackles, like 3.5 sacks. So it's like production isn't really what like you. For me, to get really excited, I want to see like 10 sacks and all these sort of tackles and things. But it's never a bad thing to add depth. And again, to me, it's how far will the ceiling go? Is it someone who's going to work hard and potentially, get onto the playing field and add some sort of contribution? Then great. But, it's not obviously going to be someone who's going to like take over the game and be this complete stud, I guess.
No,
I'm getting
not by any means. And I think depth is the key thing here with a line that was lacking some depth. And as Vince said, you don't have to use a scholarship on him. You're letting him walk on. He's been, he'll probably get some kind of academic aid or whatever, considering he is coming from Princeton. But he didn't have great offers. I think Boston College was like the only Power 5 that offered him. He had offers from the service academies and that kind of thing. But I think worst case with this whole thing is you've got a guy who's played college football for a few years, and he'll probably, like Brian Mason, will probably grab him and throw him on every special teams that he's got out there.
Absolutely.
And if you can have a guy with experience who can go out there and be a key contributor, even on special teams. We saw how much importance there is with special teams. They breathe new life into special teams with Brian Mason this year. So you get some depth up front, which they sorely needed, and probably a key special teams contributor. And you don't have to use a scholarship to get him. So I think it's great all the way around.
Yep. Absolutely agree. Yeah, don't expect him to lead the team in sacks or anything, but he's going to be he's going to be a depth piece that you don't have to pay for. That's a huge win. It's a huge win.
He's going to be assuming, he's going to be a competitor too. He's going to push a lot of your other guys to practice harder, to be better, and that kind of stuff as well. So I'm on the same board. It's a win-win. I just but when you bring in a defensive end, I want to see like a stud. I want to see like, a Foskey, a Micah Parsons. I want to see
those guys don't transfer.
Yeah, I know. Right. It's just wishful thinking on my end.
It is wishful thinking on your part.
Let a man dream, okay?
All right, I'll let you dream, young stud.
Speaking of a scholarship guy who did transfer, new defensive end Javontae Jean-Baptiste tweeted this the other day. What's better, pancakes, waffles, or French toast? So, what's your call?
This is hard for me because it depends on what mood I'm in. I will say I'm not a huge, like if I'm out to dinner or out breakfast in this case, not a huge waffle guy. Like, I'm not probably going to order waffles off of a menu. Okay. So it's either pancakes or French toast. Those are two completely different items. So it really depends on what I'm in the mood for. You can't go wrong with some stuffed French toast, though.
See, I thought Vince's first question was going to be, which one's free? That's like the only thing that usually.
Don't think I'm not looking at price, okay? Price definitely comes into play here. But if I'm making them at home, it's pancakes because it's easier.
Easiest to make. That's
yes.
right.
And I don't have a waffle iron. So it's easier and less cleanup.
For me, I'm going to go with waffles. I think waffles are definitely my favorite, and it's just because they're a little thicker, a little crispier. I hate when French toast and pancakes get kind of soggy from all the syrup and butter and, you know, whatever else you put on it. To me, the waffles stay more structurally integral. There's more structural integrity to the waffle as you're eating it. It doesn't just fall apart.
So I'm little pockets of syrup.
I like to put like peanut butter on my waffles too. Very tasty. Try it sometime. Put some little chocolate chips on there. Really good. But yeah, I have to stick with the waffles. I don't like soggy, like just it's like a sponge at the end of just like a pancake that's just soaked up all the syrup. So I'm going with waffles.
Yeah, I'm not much of a French toast either. It's like they're a little too like soggy for me. Like, and I'm really not a like a sweet breakfast person for the, you know, like I go
so
more hearty.
French toast is way out for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sweet.
Exactly. But if I'm gonna go for one, it would definitely be the waffles. Like waffles, maybe with some Nutella, you know, that kind of thing. Nutella, little you know, little Cool Whip, whatever, that kind of stuff.
Nutella.
Yeah, baby, Nutella.
Nutella is pretty good.
My family loves that crap. I do not like it.
No hazelnut for Vince.
No hazelnut.
Few different people catching up. Larry says, I've heard since grade school that Notre Dame will have to join a conference. I'll be 74 in April.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hanging tough, Larry. All right. Appreciate that.
He's not wrong.
Zach says he used to practice with the DePaul and Loyola women's squads. So much fun. We started off talking about that.
That would be fun.
Jackson.
If I had any basketball talent whatsoever, that would have been fun when I was in college.
See, that's the problem is you have to have some basketball skill to be able to do that. And that would.
Yeah, they're not just running duds out there. You got to be able to run sets and
that's
shoot
what I'm saying.
And like all of it.
Well, I can understand it. I can coach it. But I don't know that I could execute it. I think
it was funny because the guys who ran with the women's team when I was in college were also like the kings of the pickup court, and it's like, all right, guys,
of course,
this like you're just out here, you know, flaunting. This is what you do. Like this is your job.
That's right. Jonathan, first live show of the week. Hey, Steyers guys, how about them Cowboys? He's just been waiting all week
just.
Listen, I'm over it. I flushed it out. I told some friends I'm not talking about the Cowboys till next August, so don't come at me because I'm not responding.
I'm kind of liking the way this staff stuff is trending. All this talk out of Dallas.
Yeah, they brought back Dan Quinn and fired everyone else.
And there's a chance. There's a chance that Kellen Moore could be gone as well. So I'm not too disappointed about that. We won't get hung up on that because they're actually conference championship games this weekend. And I've seen this topic come up this week with Jalen Hurts in the NFC Championship game, of course, with the Eagles. Which college fan base gets to claim Jalen Hurts? Alabama's or Oklahoma's?
Ooh.
This actually reminds me of the classic Joe Burrow debate that like Ohio State fans
come on.
This is a thing, though. No, this is a thing. Every Ohio State fan
even play at Ohio State.
They still claim him because he spent more time there.
Oh my goodness!
But he didn't play. He had all of his success and won a national championship. That just shows you what kind of people Ohio State fans are. It's really annoying.
The problem is all of those Ohio State fans are also Bengal fans. That's the problem. So they just want to claim him all. You know, the whole. And he wore like the Ohio area code. You know where he lives on draft day because he's all Ohio. Like, look. he wouldn't have been Joe Burrow. He wouldn't have gone number 1 to the Bengals if he stayed at Ohio State.
Exactly. The only reason he's
Ridiculous.
relevant is because he went to LSU. He left
Correct.
Ohio State. So
if we're using that argument, then the Oklahoma fans should be able to claim Jalen Hurts,
I
even
don't know
though
about this.
Jalen Hurts took Alabama to the national championship.
See, that's what's crazy is like he had his most individual success in his season at Oklahoma, but I still remember him more for Alabama. And you know, but like
Me too.
The crazy thing is what got him to Oklahoma was the fact that he was
good at Alabama.
You know, passed over by Tua. He was, you know, basically got benched, and that's why he had to go to Oklahoma. But he wouldn't be in the NFL, I don't think, had he not gone to Oklahoma. I certainly don't think that he would have been drafted where he was. So I think I've got to lean more towards Oklahoma because they're ultimately most responsible for getting him to the NFL.
I'm going to go with Alabama because he played 3 full seasons.
Okay.
Alabama. He was the SEC Freshman of the Year. He was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year in that same year. He was first team All SEC that same year. He was first team All Big 12 when he was at Oklahoma. He was a college football national champion in 2017 with Alabama. So again, for me, if he would have run the table and like won a national championship at Oklahoma, then maybe. But he did the same things that he did at Alabama, and he spent more time at Alabama and was a starter all of the years at Alabama. So I actually am going to say that like he's an Alabama guy, and I look at his Oklahoma season as almost like a grad transfer season in my eyes. Like he killed it elsewhere and got an opportunity to go somewhere else because he was getting passed up. So I'm going to stay with Alabama on this one.
So the way I'm going to go about this, because obviously I don't have a dog in the fight, and I don't like either school. But when I think of Jalen Hurts, I think of him in an Alabama uniform.
I do too.
And I don't know how else to go about it. I mean, Jesse's got the stats. You got the stats. For me, it's just, what do I think of? I think of him in an Alabama uniform. So I'm going with the Crimson Tide on this one. I don't know. He actually had success at both schools, unlike Joe Burrow, which is a ridiculous thing if Ohio State fans are trying to claim him. Ridiculous.
Let me put it like this, though. I like what you were saying because, and when I say you, I mean my dad. I like what you're saying because I don't think if he didn't go to Oklahoma and play in that Lincoln Riley offense, I don't think he goes to the NFL and has the success that he has. Lincoln Riley's offense showcased to the NFL what he can do, and now he runs a very similar offense with the Eagles. And so both are crucial. One got him to that spot. 3 years got him that spot. But then the 1 year he was there was the most beneficial to his career.
I like what Salty was asking earlier. Who claims Drew Pine?
Arizona State now.
In 3 years, will someone want to be claiming Drew Pine? I mean, Arizona State thinks they will right now.
Well, they can have him. I mean, I love Drew Pine as a human, but they can have him. That's fine. But who gets to claim Caleb Williams? Oklahoma? USC? I mean,
well, he just won a Heisman at USC. So.
That's true. No, that's absolutely true. And here's the other thing. With the transfer portal the way it is, we're going to be able to have this debate literally every year.
Every year. Right. This is the new thing.
Yes, 100%.
We'll be talking. We'll be talking in December. Who gets to claim Sam Hartman?
Yes, Wake Forest or Notre Dame. National championship, ACC all-time touchdown leader.
Yeah. To me, this is a similar conversation for when a Hall of Famer retires in the NFL. Who he ultimately gets to decide. Right? They get to decide as the player what team they want to go in as. So kind of interesting.
Yep, I agree. So Joe Burrow, since his name was brought up a few times, 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes heading into the AFC Championship game this weekend. Scale of 1 to 10. How badly does Mahomes need to win this Sunday?
Vince, you starting or am I starting?
Ooh, you go ahead. You're more of an NFL guy than I am.
Honestly, this is really low for me. I'm going to honestly put this at like a 3 or a 4. I think he needs it more for the let me put it like this. Mahomes, if his career ended today, I think you could make a strong case that he would go to the Hall of Fame. I don't think he needs to prove anything more in terms of quarterbacking. I think it's now just a pursuit of chasing down Tom Brady for potential rings throughout the duration of his career, because I think he's going to have a long career. I think he's going to end up, if he stays healthy, end up passing, a lot of these guys on the leaderboards when it's all said and done. And I think he's got to, start chasing more rings. So the only reason I think that this is a potential has weight is because he needs to start chasing more Super Bowls. But again, like I said, if his career ended today, I still think he'd make the Hall of Fame. So I think more of like a personal vendetta against Joe Burrow, it has relevance and, the potential to chase the Super Bowl, but I don't think it does anything for him, like career-wise.
Okay.
It's a very well thought out answer. I appreciate your answer, Jesse. The bottom line for me is I don't think Mahomes gives a crap about what his head-to-head battle with Joe Burrow is. He's got a Super Bowl ring. Joe Burrow doesn't. So at the end of the day, Mahomes wins right now. Now, that could all change, obviously, as Joe Burrow, maybe if he wins this one, goes on to win the Super Bowl. Okay, then we're talking even. But the head-to-head thing, I just don't think it matters that much outside of course, they both want to go to the Super Bowl. So I don't think that's what he's going to be worrying about.
Well,
It's like, oh, crap.
You think it matters to
against Joe
Peyton
Burrow.
Manning, though? Like, I mean, Peyton doesn't have as many rings as Tom Brady ended up with, but he also lost a lot of AFC championship games to Tom Brady. Like, do you think the head-to-head matters to Tom Brady? Or not to Tom Brady, to Peyton Manning? I mean, he's a very competitive guy, just like Brady. I've got to bet that it kind of gnaws at him a little bit still,
Okay.
Because, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the way I was looking at it is more from a, the media standpoint. Like, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
You know what I mean? To Mahomes, I guarantee you he's pissed off. Garrett, if he's in any way a competitor, he's pissed off. Agree with that.
And the Bengals are calling Arrowhead Stadium Burrowhead Stadium right now.
That's funny.
Like, if I'm the Chiefs, especially, I don't know what does or doesn't get to Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't seem overly fazed by a lot of things, but that would kind of bug me a little bit. Well,
not
don't even
by
get
much,
started.
Clearly.
Yeah. But this is the Chiefs' 5th consecutive AFC Championship game. If they lose this game,
insanity.
If they lose this game, it'll be 2 in a row to Burrow and the Bengals, and they would be 2 and 3 in home AFC Championship games if they lose this game. So, I don't know, to Mahomes specifically what it means and all this kind of stuff. I put a little bit higher, though. I put it at a 6 because it's 5 consecutive AFC Championship games, and if you come out of this and you've only won 2 of them, only gone to the Super Bowl twice, with basically the best quarterback of the generation right now, I don't think that there are probably too many people who would argue against Patrick Mahomes. If there are, go ahead and stand up and let me know. But I think because Joe Burrow in a pretty short amount of time, one, he's dominated these head-to-heads, and 2, if he wins a 2nd consecutive AFC Championship game, that people are going to start talking about Joe Burrow in a much different light. Basically, I think almost the same light they're talking about Mahomes, assuming he can actually win the whole thing. That's kind of what comes next. Yeah, that Burrowhead, I even saw the Cincinnati mayor did this video this afternoon and tweeted it, and he referenced Burrowhead, and I just wonder how much, the Bengals were playing that, no respect card and all that stuff last week against the Bills. You haven't heard the Chiefs talking about it, but you do wonder how much this could be motivating them, with basically everyone's talking about the Bengals with this game taking place in their home stadium this weekend.
Absolutely.
All right, so if you're the 49ers, looking back at the other game, Eagles 49ers, Brock Purdy is the quarterback, of course, and he is just a rookie, famously Mr. Irrelevant, last NFL draft pick, 7th round and all that stuff out of Iowa State. If you're the 49ers, do you stick with Brock Purdy next year if he gets you to the Super Bowl? Do you go back to Trey Lance, who started off the season as the quarterback, or maybe do you explore even bringing in Tom Brady next season? What do you do if Purdy gets you to the Super Bowl this weekend?
So this just reeks to me of kind of a Foles situation right? I mean, he won the Super Bowl for him. He was Super Bowl MVP, got a statue out front, and he was pretty much never heard from again. Made a lot of money, signed a lot of deals, but from a playing standpoint, didn't do a whole lot after that, right? I'm not saying Brock Purdy's going to be that, but you cannot rest the hopes and dreams of your entire franchise on Brock Purdy. He can be involved in a competition, going into the next season. That's as far as I would go, because I don't know that I'm sold on Trey Lance either. Okay. So you got Trey Lance, you got Brock Purdy, and I think you do bring somebody in for some sort of a competition. Whoever that somebody is, that somebody for me, though, is not Tom Brady. Because I think we saw this year, Tom Brady's his arrow's pointing in the wrong direction. Now, you can say it's because of the family situation and everything he had going on. I know that can affect guys.
Pointing up.
I get it. It's pointing way down. I would not bring in Tom Brady. Number one, it's going to be too expensive. Number two, the expectations are going to be way too much, and there's no way you can live up to it unless you win a Super Bowl. And I don't think he can't put a team on his back to win a Super Bowl anymore. I would not bring in Tom Brady, but I would bring in a different quarterback, all-out competition, winner take all.
For me, Brock Purdy isn't the guy. Even if he goes to the Super Bowl, even if he wins the Super Bowl, this team is built around. I mean, look at Jimmy Garoppolo could take this team pretty far. I don't think that the quarterback is the guy, the main kind of, fall for this team. I think that you could put in a pretty, solid to average quarterback. And they have a great defense. They have great weapons around them. They have great game planning. They have great coaches. And so they don't need a whole bunch of production really out of their quarterback. But to me, why Trey Lance is still the guy is the draft capital that they gave up and the moves that they made to go get him as a franchise. I feel like you can't go back on that just because he got hurt, and you made a lot of decisions, again, to give up pieces in order to go get him. So for me, the pecking order would go Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, and then potentially whoever that they bring in. And I'm with you, Vince. I don't think bringing in Tom Brady makes any sense in this situation. I think you could get it done with Trey Lance or Brock Purdy.
I don't think you can get it done with Trey Lance. I would cut my bait with him. Don't forget the Bears beat the 49ers with Trey Lance as the quarterback. And I know it was a rainstorm and all that stuff, but the Bears got to play in it as well. And, now there's talk about, Justin Fields and, who are they going to draft at the number one pick and all that stuff. I think you both kind of backed up the points that I would make, like Vince brought up money and, Jesse brought up draft capital. Well, they're probably going to keep Trey Lance around no matter what. And if it's Lance and Purdy competing for the job, okay. But if it ends up being Brock Purdy, because of the fact that he was a 7th round draft pick and you don't have to pay him anything, and they're already this good with him at quarterback, because like Jesse said, that the system obviously is not that reliant on the quarterback, and look at the success that they've had. I mean, Jimmy G got him to the Super Bowl. We've seen his deficiencies. Brock Purdy is one win away from getting him to the Super Bowl. The fact that you have a quarterback that you have to pay that little for the next few years, it frees up that much more cap space, and you can keep going out and adding to it. And, you've got a quarterback you don't have to pay very much, basically, for 4 years. So I would want that around. I would still want somebody competing with him, but
yes.
I mean, hell, they've already shown. I mean, and I get your Nick Foles thing, but he's a little bit different just because he was already a journeyman who'd been around, kicked around a little bit and caught lightning in a bottle. But the kid doesn't play like a rookie. That's for
I agree.
Sure.
Oh, he's on a hot streak. There's no doubt about it. He's got a ton of talent around him. He's using it. He's doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. I just wouldn't feel comfortable just handing him the keys the day after the Super Bowl and being like, all right, franchise is yours. Let's roll. That would make me uneasy as a 49ers fan.
I mean, Jonathan saying Brady threw for 4,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9
Thank
interceptions.
you, Gabe. Jonathan.
Hurt receiving core. Well, okay. But how about Mike Evans? Because those two never connected until the end of the. I mean, you can talk about hurt receiver. He still had guys out there. It's it's not like he had nothing out there. I don't completely buy that. I thought Jesse did. I thought Jesse was going to go all in on that one. So what do you think about NFC Championship game? Niners, Eagles, 49ers are 2.5-point underdogs.
I like the Eagles to win that game. I think that Eagles have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. I think their offense is better than the 49ers, and I think their defense is obviously not as good as the 49ers, but it's enough. Basically, their offensive talent outweighs the gap between their difference between the 49ers defense in my eyes. I think their offense makes up for maybe their lack of defense that is not quite as good as the 49ers. So I like the Eagles to win that game. They are also hosting that game. It is a crazy environment to play in Philadelphia, some of the worst football fans in the world. And then for the Bengals and Chiefs, I think Patrick Mahomes gets over that Joe Burrow hump, actually. I think he's heard about it. I think that the Bengals are making a lot of noise. Burrowhead Stadium for coming in, to the 5-time repeat AFC champion, or, a team that's been to the AFC championship 5 times in a row. You got to give them a little bit more respect. So I like both the home teams in this situation. So I think it's going to be an Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl. But I think both games will be very close and very good. They'll come down to the end. And I think in the Bengals and Chiefs, it's going to be whose offense can do a little bit more.
We're not to the Bengals and Chiefs yet. We're on 49ers Eagles. Come on.
49ers Eagles. I think the winner will be determined who plays a little bit more defense or a little bit.
Are you going to let Vince talk here? Are you going to let Vince talk?
Okay, I'm taking the Niners and I'm taking the Bengals. I'm done.
Complete opposites, huh?
I am. I'm taking the opposite. As much as I just banged on Brock Purdy and what he brings, I still think the Niners defense is playing really, really well right now. And I think you've got, McCaffrey, and you've just got a ton of weapons offensively that Brock Purdy does a great job spreading the ball around to. And the Eagles looked practically invincible last week. So anything I say right now is going to sound ridiculous. I don't know why, but I think it's going to be the Niners. I don't know why. I just do. So I'm taking the Niners plus the 2.5.
I heard all these people last week. I heard all this. Hey, don't let what happens in one round of the playoffs influence how you feel in the next round of the playoffs. And then, so what's happened? Well, now this week, a week later, the Eagles beat the crap out of a crappy Giants team, and everyone's all over the Eagles right now. I mean, the Eagles have one playoff win, and it's against the New York Giants. They got a bye in the first round. They've played one game against the second worst, maybe third worst team, one of the worst teams in the NFC in the playoffs. They beat them for a third time, and now everyone's all over the Eagles like they're world beaters. And, the Giants have one of the 2 worst defensive teams in all of the playoffs, and that's who the Eagles ran over last week. So I can't go all in on Philadelphia. It kind of gives me a little bit of doubt because everyone's going in on the Eagles right now, but you two went all in on the Giants last week. So it's like, I feel a little bit better right now. And Kyle Shanahan is 7-1 against the spread in the postseason. So I'm going to go with the 49ers. And I've been like going like this whole, how the Chiefs get motivated by all this Bengals stuff. The Bengals are 1.5-point underdogs going into Arrowhead or Arrowhead or whatever you want to call it. I picked the Niners and the Bengals at the start of the playoffs, so I'm going to stay with my pick, I guess, even though I think it's going to be a great game. Jesse? Vince?
Go ahead on your soliloquy.
See,
the AFC is going to, the AFC winner. Go ahead, Mr. Home Team. Guys walking with a limp, going to do it all for you. Go ahead.
You brought up some good points about the Eagles. They haven't had to play
a
lot of competition. And I went back to look at their regular season schedule, right? Because you started talking about that they got to play the Giants in the playoffs. You look at their regular season schedule.
The best team they've beaten is the Cowboys.
They put the Lions, the Vikings, the Commanders, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, the Steelers, the Texans, the Commanders, the Colts, the Packers, the Giants, the Titans, the Bears, the Giants again, and the Saints. Like, their best opponent was probably the Cowboys because the Vikings were very fraudulent. And so then I was like, let me double check this. I Googled strength of schedule for NFL teams. the Eagles had the second easiest strength of schedule after the end of the regular season, after seeing where the rest of the teams had fallen. And now they get to play a very easy kind of New York team in the playoffs. And don't get me wrong, New York was solid, but they were amongst the weaker, playoff teams. So I might have to backtrack. I think the 49ers have played more of those physical kind of playoff games, and I don't know how the Eagles might respond if they get punched in the mouth. So I'm changing. I'm going rematch 49ers and Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Still sticking with the Chiefs,
Their schedule was as easy as the Cowboys. You're right. And they split their games, Jonathan. So, let's not get our skis too far out ahead. Go ahead, Vince.
I'm all on the Bengals. I just don't.
Okay.
I'm not that impressed with what the Chiefs have done, and they got their best players hobbled. It's a high ankle sprain that doesn't heal in 6 days.
Like,
I'm sorry.
Have you seen the video of him? Like, he's not showing any noticeable limp at all. Like, he practiced going down step, like the whole thing. It's like
he practiced going down step. He called Tyler Buckner. Hey, how do you go up and down steps? I got to know how to do this.
Yeah, they showed him. From his press conference, he walked down the steps. Like, there was no limp at all. Like,
I saw that. We'll see what
did
happens.
They really diagnose it right? Was it really a high ankle sprain? Because he shouldn't.
He's just got the juices flowing at that point, and I think that's what makes Patrick Mahomes. He's just a gamer. You put a little cortisone in there too. He's not going to feel a thing in that ankle.
Right. So we need to kind of reel back a little bit. We have one topic that we need to add here today because Twitter is now blowing up, and it looks like this happened literally right after the show started, or right around the time the show was starting. James Laurinitis is going back to Ohio State as a grad assistant to work with the linebackers there. Of course, he worked as a grad assistant one season here, along, working for Marcus Freeman. And so now he is going back to his alma mater, basically for the same position. He was a GA here. He's going to be a GA at Ohio State, apparently. So, reaction to this news. Start with you, Vince.
I'm lukewarm about it. Right? Whatever.
I'd feel worse if the linebackers, like if we all felt, like head and shoulders better about the linebackers.
That was going to be my exact point. Like, are we all like happy with the way the linebacking core played last year? Because if we were, then okay, this is a huge loss. I don't know that it's that big of a loss. Yeah, okay, so we don't have a name as a graduate assistant coaching linebackers. Well, that's because he played in the NFL and he doesn't need to be a full-time head coach with what they make, money-wise. He could be a GA. That's why he's going back to Ohio State to be a GA again. My guess is he lives out there permanently. He was visiting Notre Dame and then decided to stay and be a coach. Yeah, okay. Maybe it stinks that he's leaving. Maybe he was a decent recruiter, whatever. The linebacking play was terrible. So let's bring some new blood in. I'm fine with that.
I actually saw something kind of cool in the chat brought up by Larry. Like, how cool would it be to see someone like Coach Mason get a crack at coaching the linebackers, or, someone maybe get a little self-promotion within after seeing how hard the special teams play and seeing, someone like Mason's kind of, Vince said pass, whatever.
Hard pass. He's got his hands full with the number one special teams unit in the country. I don't need his attention to.
Yeah, but he's going to want to start taking steps in his career, I guess is what I'm saying.
He can go from being special teams coordinator to being a head coach just like that, easily.
Okay.
He doesn't need to.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I would, how much impact or lack of impact he had, who knows? What we do know is the defensive coordinator is in charge of the linebackers. And if that is his position, he is the position coach for the linebackers, just like Marcus Freeman and Clark Lee were before him, and they performed at higher levels when those two guys were the position coaches for that specific group. I'd like to see maybe the defensive coordinator up his game and get these guys.
That'd be nice.
Yeah,
I'd be okay with Marcus
Freeman
graduate assistant
too. I was going to say, does this mean that Marcus Freeman gets a little bit back in the room, gets his
that would be great
input back in there? And I think it would be great because we saw it during the bowl game, and I thought that it benefited the linebackers. And it's a great voice, and it's obviously he knows what he's talking about. He's played there at a high level, and I don't think it hurts to have reintroduce him back in the room, eliminate maybe a voice out, declutter it a little bit, and then have someone like Marcus Freeman step in there a little bit.
Yeah, And I realized there are different thoughts about how much the head coach should be involved with the position group and stuff like that. And we've talked before about Nick Saban, working with defensive backs and stuff like that at Alabama. It's not like it has to take over all of his time. I mean, he's already a head coach who is very active in recruiting, definitely more active in recruiting than the previous head coach. And the previous head coach for a time was also dedicating a lot of his time to the quarterbacks. We know that he was doing that. I think that, there are ways that Marcus Freeman can be involved just in the film room, for example. Be in the film room with those guys and share your expertise with them and go over that. It's not like he has to spend every minute of a practice with that position group when they're out there on the practice field. But you've also got spring practice coming up. And I think that that's a time where, again, he still needs to oversee things. But, you can't tell me that he can't carve out one period per practice to working with that specific position group, because he bounces around to position groups anyway.
And I'll just say this, just because you played the position doesn't mean you can coach it. That's all I've got to say about that. I'll be like Forrest Gump. Then. That's all I got to say about that.
All I got to say about that.
Like, just stop naming good linebackers that can come in and coach. Like, that's not a solution. I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right.
Just not.
That's yes. Because if that were the case, then everyone who ever played would be coaching someplace.
Right. Manti Te'o isn't moving from Hawaii to South Bend to be a graduate assistant. So let's put the brakes on there, unless that's really what he wants to do. His wife just had a baby like 2 weeks ago. He's not going to become a graduate assistant in South Bend. Like, settle down.
Yeah. Well, and like people are bringing up Goolsby right now. Look, as of right now, there is no actual assistant coach opening. You're going to have to be a grad assistant, which means that you're in school.
Right.
Like, so you can throw out all the names you want, but as of right now, the only position is for a grad assistant. So again, they have to be enrolled in a graduate program to be a grad assistant.
Correct.
That's part of the deal.
Which means he'd have to quit.
And they're not getting a full-time salary. Yes.
Of being a talking head like that,
right.
So yeah, I just don't see that being the case either.
Yeah. I wanted to ask one thing before we leave, and we've got a pretty good group of people here, a good cross sample. So I'll be curious to see what experience people might have with this. YouTube TV. Does anyone have it? Has anyone tried it? Like, do you like it? Do you not like it? Pros, cons, all that stuff. Because, we're Sunday Ticket is leaving DirecTV. And that means I've got to have my Sunday Ticket. It's going to YouTube. Now, you can get it separate, but my wife hates DirecTV, so we're probably going to be getting rid of DirecTV at some point since Sunday Ticket is leaving. So I'm just trying to find out, like if any people have experience with the YouTube TV. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Pros, cons, the whole thing. Zone 6 says he likes it. And Jonathan says YouTube TV is awesome. Jesse, have you ever used it before?
I had it for a little bit, and I just remember not being overly impressed with it. But I had it like 3-4 years ago when I was in graduate school, so I can't remember a whole bunch of it. We've thought about switching from Hulu to other streaming services. I know Naomi had a work friend that said YouTube TV wasn't worth it, so I don't think my opinion really should hold weight because I haven't really had it before, and I'm just going off of hearsay. So, again, when I had it a few years ago, I got recommended by one of my really good friends, and he loved it, liked everything about it. And I think I had some sort of trial or something, so I don't know if I had all of the features, but I just remember not being too impressed with it. But again, that was 3-4 years ago, so I think they've added some things.
What's funny is I emailed you guys the list of topics, and I just put YouTube TV at the end. And a few hours later, I sent you guys that email at about maybe 1:00 or something like that.
Yeah.
Within about 3 hours, there's an email in my inbox from T-Mobile pitching me YouTube TV.
They're listening.
Wow.
Yes.
Always listening.
I know.
Always.
I know. Tyler says he can't switch yet. Got a good deal with DirecTV Stream a few years back. Got their best package for $25 a month. That's pretty good if you can get that for $25 a month. But I've heard that, like the YouTube thing has, a DVR and all that kind of stuff, which is a definite plus.
I know our boss has it and he enjoys it because he can pause and go back and all of that on games. So, I mean, there's that feature, obviously. So,
right. All right. Well, I'll have to get his input. I'll have to see what he has to say about it. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight, guys. A lot of topics we were able to address. Hit the like button if you would on your way out. We do appreciate it. Subscribe, rate, review, leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend and enjoy this weekend because football, 2 games on Sunday, and then we have no football next week. So
I know. Scary.
I know.
Scary.
We've got 3 real football games left until next year.
And then
later this year.
The USFL kicks in or whatever happens the week after the Super Bowl.
So we have 3 real football games for the next
or maybe that's the XFL. I can't remember which one's which. All I remember is there's 2 spring leagues coming. One starts the week after and one starts in April.
Right.
So we're going to have a lot of bad football to watch.
Yes, that's for sure.
So
that's for sure.
Anyway.
All right. Well, have a great weekend, and we will talk to you Monday on IB Nation Sports Talk.